Let's give our speaker Emerita another big round. We start right on time. Thank you, Nancy, for coming to Jackie Chan Center, and welcome to all of our special guests today. Today, as our speaker Emerita said, a day of action, and we're all here because we really cannot wait, to work together to help our seniors and our community. We are not in a good place, but we're here to hear what our strategy should be and what our action should be. So our speaker, Emerita Nancy Pelosi, needs no introduction. All of us in this room are really work very, very closely with Nancy almost on everything. At Center for the Elderly, we were talking about how Speaker Emerita will bring key elected officials and department heads whenever there's an issue that we need to talk about, address, and work on. Nancy, I don't remember how many times I've follow you when you fight for affordable care, when you went around and saved Social Security. I remember we brought out a high-cap senior to talk about how the donut hole in the Medicare Part D hurt all our seniors. And in every one of those issues, Nancy was our leader. She led the fight. So this time will be no different. On the Social Security front, I just want to quote 3 stories, Nancy, and to all our guests today. Next door is a Roundtable Healthcare Center where about 75, 80 very frail seniors are getting their services and their daycare. And self-help serves around 50,000 seniors a year in the 5 Bay Area counties. And I would say 99.9% depend on Social Security for their livelihood and to keep alive, to keep themselves alive. And recently, a number of our seniors reported by our high-cap staff, which is the Health Insurance Counseling and Advocacy Project, that there's just confusion, chaos, and the worst is fear. Fear of not knowing when their Social Security check is coming. We heard that suddenly there's a flurry of these notices saying to the elderly that they are overpaid. They don't know what to do. And then you have to go visit a Social Security office that may or may not be there anymore. But the worst is we heard horror stories, which I'm sure all of you have experienced, is waiting for 4 to 5 hours for someone to respond on the phone, holding on. And then when they get to you, because of the probably many, many calls that went through, suddenly the call stopped. And you can't call back and get the same worker. You have to go back and line up for hours and get back to your issue. I don't think that's the way that we need to treat our elderly. It's a very, very disastrous way to treat our elderly. So, Speaker Emerita, today, I urge you to lead us in this fight and to make sure that the millions of elderly that depend on Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security will continue to thrive. So thank you very much, and thank you for coming.
Thank you very much, Andy. As I have been working, as you suggested, on all these issues, you have been a tremendous intellectual resource on all of it, especially those issues that relate to the health of our seniors and the well-being of our seniors. For decades, several decades, Andy has been that intellectual resource. She has been wise, she has been dissatisfied from time to time and patient, but always focused and strategic. So thank you. It's so appropriate that we're here. It's so appropriate that we're here as self-help, because that term is so important for the elderly. And I thank all of you. I'm eager to hear from our panel from the standpoint of policy and personal experience, because nothing is more valuable than the stories that people tell about their own experience. What's so sad about what's happening now is they'll say, we're not touching benefits, but they're closing offices, they're shutting down the phones. Now there's been a resistance to the phone thing, so they get back, but it's still a long time. And then at the end of the day, they say the office is closed, the phone's over. And that is just such bad news for seniors or people with disabilities. I'm sorry. So this is a day of action for Social Security. Last week we had Day of Action to save Medicaid. These are related, right, Henry? These are related. We have Days of Action for Medicare and the rest. But understand what we're up against, and I think you know this, that's why you're here. They're saying Social Security is a scam. Imagine that. Imagine that. Okay, so let's talk about 9 decades ago, in the depths of the Great Depression, half of America's seniors lived in poverty. Instead of rest and fulfillment, retirement only brought uncertainty and hardship. President Roosevelt said, "There is no tragedy in growing old, but there is tragedy in growing old without means of support." By signing the Social Security into law, he established a pillar of financial stability that has stood for generations. Today, it safeguards the well-being of millions, tens of millions of Americans, whether retired or living with a disability. You all know this. Social Security is one of our nation's greatest legislative accomplishments and one of the most widely supported. In San Francisco alone, more than 100,000 residents received $196 million in Social Security checks per month. $196 million in hard-earned. Donald Trump and co-president Musk are spreading risks about the Social Security, calling it a Ponzi scheme and a scam. Musk's Doge or whatever thing is putting benefits at risk, and Republicans in Congress want to end Social Security as we know it, no matter what they say, as we know it. They're fighting to hike the retirement age, slash benefits, push privatization, all to give tax breaks to billionaires. I know they talk about fiscal responsibility, and yet they're willing to give tax breaks to billionaires with nothing to cover. Now, if we want to feed children, they'll say, how are we going to pay for it? We're going to offset it so that it doesn't add to the national debt. But tax breaks for the rich, you don't have to offset that. That's just plain wrong. So in any event, here we are. I was just telling my own story on Saturday ago, not this past, but the one before, which was our Day of Action on Medicaid. I was at a wedding in Scranton, Pennsylvania, of my college roommate and maid of honor at my wedding. So it was like a family wedding for me, for her grandson. And that's where I participated in the Day of Action. So we had this big thing at Scranton. It was so exciting. They didn't expect that I would be there because we didn't tell them until anyway, it was fabulous. It was pouring rain, but we're not persist. It was fabulous. But the reason I bring it up is I go to the wedding. I do not know the bride's family. So I know the groom's family. But the rest of them, you never know, you know. Oh my God. So anyway, after the wedding, before I had a chance to visit the family came to me. And they were, very nice and complimentary, so that was good. And then the grandmother came and she said, what are they doing with my Social Security? This is in the church. I paid into that. That's my money. I said, let's go on let's go to the rally. But it was so indicative to me that people know. But they have to know what is also happening. Lincoln said public sentiment is everything. With it, you can accomplish almost anything. Without it, practically nothing. Susan's shaking her head because she's heard me say that 1 million times. But for public sentiment to prevail, people have to know. So we just have to have the drumbeat, a constant drumbeat. This is what they are doing. Some of you were part of our, shall we say, strategy in 2006 when the then president wanted to privatize Social Security. Privatize. And so that was our fight. We had won since 1992. This is 2006. Beginning in 2005, we started our campaign against this privatizing of Social Security. And we had events all of the time. In one day, we had 200 events on this. So he said, Nancy, you keep saying, I had a good rapport with President Bush. There's a different story. We're talking about patriotic American versus somebody who uses words like scam and Ponzi scheme. So he said, you keep saying I want to privatize Social Security. It's not really so much as want to partially privatize it. And I said, Mr. President, that's good enough for me. Every place you go, we will have an inoculation team to inoculate against what you're going to say, a positive team to talk about our plan for Social Security. And we won for the first time in 1992. Not to talk politics, but civics. So we want them to have their hands, that our whole theme on Saturday in the rain in Pennsylvania. But Christine was in the one here, but all over the country, millions of people participate. Hands off that day, our Medicaid. But we want hands off our safety net, whether it's Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, food for our children. Now imagine that they are saying we can't really do our budget unless we can find an offset for the food, so we'll have to cut the food. SNAP, the safety net. So this is what we're up against here, among other things. So now it's my pleasure, as Annie indicated, that for us to be hearing from our friends, it's my pleasure to introduce a relentless advocate for seniors, Kelly Dearman. I've known her since she was a little girl, but now I'm just you all, I think many of you have, of course, a beautiful parents from San Francisco Department of Disability and Aging Services. Welcome.
Thank you so much. I am really grateful to be here. So I'm the Executive Director of San Francisco's Department of Disability and Aging Services, and we call it DOS. We deliver a critical safety net of services and public benefits to promote independence and well-being for older people, adults with disabilities, and our veterans. Thank you so much for this opportunity to be here today to highlight not only the vital support that our department provides for our residents, but also the impacts that any potential cuts to benefits may have on our seniors and on our adults with disabilities here in San Francisco. For me and for DOS, we're working toward a San Francisco where people with disabilities, older adults, and our veterans are valued, engaged, and living with dignity. Older adults, as you all know, are the fastest growing group of people experiencing homelessness in our state. For so many, Social Security benefits are a critical support for seniors and adults with disabilities living in one of the most expensive cities in the nation. Every day, we see seniors trying to patch their benefits together with other services, such as the food support we offer through community senior centers, just to make ends meet. Already, we see so many having to make choices between paying their rent, eating, or buying their medications. Unfortunately, watching these folks piece together these supports is a bit like watching a game of Jenga. When a critical, supportive block is potentially removed from the tower, it can all come crashing down. Nearly a quarter of all San Franciscans receive Social Security income. And if these folks' foundational supports are cut, it would be difficult for them to even make it at all. And after so many years of contributing to our society, our seniors deserve all the help they need to be able to afford to live and thrive in their communities. So I'm so grateful for being here. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the presentation, more importantly for your great service to our community and being a model for the nation. Next, we're going to hear from Jacqueline Hopkins, AFGE Union Representative and Social Security Administration employee. her story is one that everyone should read. Thank you.
I could speak all day about my representational duties with the American Federation of Government Employees. My local asked me to come today, and I was happy to be here and thankful to be here. But I did take the liberty to write some notes because it's an important thing to talk about, and I just wanted to make sure I didn't leave anything out. So after years of underfunding, the Social Security Administration has reached a 27-year low in staffing while asked to serve the public in a high record number. I'm grateful and happy to serve the public when it's at its most vulnerable in life, when help is needed the most in life, in the real world we all live in. I'm grateful when the public calls or comes into the office, and even after service delays due to staffing, they let us know that they're praying for us because they need us to be here. I was grateful as the young mother and wife of two young, wonderful boys when they became eligible for benefits when their father became a disabled veteran and unable to work. Social Security helped us personally save us from poverty. I was grateful that my beautiful granddaughter is eligible for survivor benefits. When I lost my oldest son, my granddaughter was only weeks old, and because her dad had worked and paid into the system, he's able to help raise her because of the benefits she receives from Social Security. We work as employees every day. We are charged. It's part of our daily job to identify waste, fraud, and abuse. It's what we do. It's part of our job. Each of us know we can easily be on the other side of that interview, taking an application. So we try to do the job with the warmth that's expected from us. It's a confusing and difficult time most of the time when people are in need of Social Security, so we try to be there for them. Thank you all for listening.
In my presentation the other day to with me about from Martin O'Malley, who was a former administrator, former governor of Maryland, former mayor of Baltimore, but his proudest thing is that he was the administrator. Social Security said it was the most important job he could ever imagine. And what he was telling us is, of course, they're not going to cut them, but they let people go. So benefits are affected by that. And AFGE has been a real leader. Jacqueline's union has been a real leader in this fight for marriage. Mike Bartell is a Marine veteran and SSI recipient. For our veterans, this is so important. Most people need to realize that, and I thank you for sharing.
My name is Mike Bartell, and I've been living in the Bay Area. I'm a native. I've been here all my life. And now I live on Treasure Island because I became homeless 5 years ago. And so the fellowship came and rescued me, which is really a wonderful thing. And I got my Social Security going. Well, and they asked me to come down and talk to you about it. That's my main, keeps me breathing, my Social Security. It's something I never thought about if they took it away, what I would do. And I think I just have to lay down and go to sleep for a long time because I've never been in a better position in my life and more happier than I am right now because of that Social Security. It keeps me in my little phone vest, all right? It keeps me in touch with my son because I'm doing really good and well. And the veterans I live with hate me because I'm not so happy and I talk too much. But, it's just, I don't even want to think about what they're trying to do with Social Security. It irritates the hell out of me. Why, when somebody spends 24 years of their life working their butt off, then all of a sudden you're just going to come take it away? That's not in my book. You don't do that kind of stuff. But anyway, I got off my Not that I can read anyway, but it's just my story. I'm happy, and I don't want to be unhappy. I spent a lot of years being miserable when I was a kid, because I was like an orphan. And now, with the help of swords and that lady back there, all right, they brought me into a new world where I feel, first time in my life, comfortable. I have a new family. I wouldn't trade them for nothing. And Social Security is going to be a deep trouble with me if they take the stuff with it. Woo! So, and that's my story.
I mentioned Swords of Plowshare, the leader of Swords of Plowshare is here. He tries Social Security. Our vets. Actually, Mike, your story is very much like the bride's grandmother. But you see what we all have in common in this. As you told us so beautifully. Thank you so much for your service to our country as a veteran, but also. We'll have time for questions after. Now we're going to hear from Kevin Roach, artist and SSI recipient. Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I've been a recipient of Social Security since I was 18 years old. It pays for my rent. It pays for food. It gives me some little money to buy some clothes. And my worry is what the clients are, because there's a table, and I was in Sacramento. I saw the people in wheelchairs that will never walk again, and there are I fight for all the people with a disability. They are very fragile people, and they will never understand any of these cuts or anything, any benefits, what they say, what they're trying to say, their food stamps or anything. They are very fragile. The bus system was a little fouled up a while ago, and they were troubled about that. You mentioned Social Security. We're going backwards. And them children, they're adults. And where are we going to go? Are we going back to an institution? Where is he going to take us? We can't pay our rent. I'll be on the sidewalk with a coin thing, looking for a coin, and I'm almost 70 years old. My birthday's next month. How dare they? How ashamed! They ought to be ashamed of themselves to do this. How some of the pulpits can't ever walk, and I fight for their parents. Their parents wouldn't stick up for me because they are innocent. They're Latino, they're purple, they're red, and they're human. But they're cool. And I thank you.
Thanks, Kevin. Shame, 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 shame,
Shame, shame, shame, shame, shame, shame, shame.
Kevin is an artist, so he found the simplest way to convey this. Thank you, Kevin, for your beautiful presentation. Kevin is also with the Art SF. So the arts have a way of making things good to the church. Thank you. So, and Esther Landau, thank you for being with us as well. So with that, Annie, with your permission, perhaps we'll have some questions. Let me thank all of our participants. Some questions from the audience. And you said you had a question.
I'm kind of nervous. Bear with me. Listen, I want to give great thanks to Jesus Christ. I'm not ashamed to do that. I'm very grateful to everyone here. Miss Pelosi, it's an honor to meet you. I'm really nervous. But I'm proud to be here. It's not to be a script, it's not to be known. My name is Eric Brown. I'm very grateful to St. Anthony's. very grateful to a lady by the name of Ms. Marie Quinn and the staff there. Again, Ms. Pelosi, I'm grateful to you and your counterparts for stepping up. I am 71 years old. I've been on Social Security for 12 years. I'm grateful for that. My concern with Social Security are very fundamental. If they cut Social Security, I've been dependent on it. I'm a musician. I need to work. I haven't been doing that. But it can be a great challenge for me. If these cuts continue, I'm worried that my rent will be intercepted. You know, and that goes too much. Rent and HUD, which I'm involved with at the time, I'm very grateful to have it. It gives me a serious problem. I have an excellent record, although I'm working on a legal case. No one needs to know about. I have a very clean record of being in very problematic environments. I've been involved with police coming to my door. It's been very positive with them. I can brag. But again, back to the subject, speaking on rent and being getting services from the government. If these fundamentals are constricted or blocked, it would at some point affect my food, medication, be able to function. Most importantly, I think what this gentleman was saying, I think when you're not able to flourish in the system, your spirit, it can be affected, your morale, and the last momentum. I'm a drummer, musician, and I want to get back to what I'm doing, and it's so great to be around so many creative people in here. We've got very creative energy. I'm hoping we can all flourish together, and last, Ms. Pelosi, I'm going to thank you for going back to the movie. We're working for a real fight now. It's a real fight. It's not no checkers, chess, it's a fight. And I wanted to say that if that was to come up, as we are trying to, this is a we thing, not them, those, this is a we thing. What may come up, and what can I do to protect myself?
Well, thank you so much for sharing your story. And what you're doing today is very important, and I encourage you to continue to do it. In 2018, starting in 2017, as I said, in 06 we started in 05. And 2018 election, this is civics, not politics now. We had 10,000 events around the country. Many of you participated in order to save the Affordable Care Act. 10,000 events where people told their stories. Nothing is more powerful than that. And nothing is more eloquent to a member of Congress and then the voice of his or her own constituents. So we want the people in those Republican districts to speak out, but we want a drumbeat across America of everyone speaking out on this, because you described the full array. I mean, you talked about healthcare then, but healthcare and housing are the same issue in my view. Housing is healthcare. And now today we're talking about Social Security as an insurance of that. It's not an entitlement, it's an insurance program. So we have to keep framing it that way. But telling your story is very important. And again, you're a drummer, two artists here today, knowing how to communicate to the public. Thank you. Henny lost her dear husband Dennis, who was always at these meetings as well.
Yes, on November 6th, my husband came home and said, "Let's watch a nice movie. I don't want to watch the news. I don't think I can nor I want to live under what is coming for seniors and people with disabilities." 5 hours later, when I touched his hand, it was cold. My husband, 58 years, died. I immediately went and started to work on the Social Security and and found out and told people in every place, because I am a California Alliance for Retired Americans legislative director, that if you want to get the money from, the money that you can get now, that I should be getting is his money for Social Security, that you have to wait for about 240 days.
240 days.
If you are disabled, you have to wait for 240 days. I waited by the phone for 20 hours to get my appointment. The phone didn't ring because they fired the people who hold those phones and talk to you. How do we get people to know that your representative can help you? My representative is helping me. I finally got mad. Now I have to go to an appointment that there are no appointments. Now I can live on this, but when I talked about this at the Labor Council, I had a woman sitting right across from me, this close, who said that she can't get the money from her husband's Social Security, and she is going to lose her apartment. So what I want to ask you right now is what you do when people call your office. What is it that you can do for us? And how do we get this information out to everybody else? That is important. And I want to ask the question, if you can help us with AJR 3. This is something that Kara wrote. It is a resolution, and that resolution is for all of the people in California who are assembly people, etc., to vote for AJR 3. It is saying, don't cut Social Security. Don't touch Medicare and Medicaid. And this is what we're working for. So can you tell them what you do in your office so we can tell the people that are in here how to help other seniors and people with disabilities?
Thank you, Henry. Henry has been a stalwart advocate and a very effective one for a long time. Henry, I would say to new members when they came to Congress, I'm just going back a number of years because some other issues have emerged as well, but your staff will be spending a great deal of time on Social Security because you're the connection to all of that. The numbers under Joe Biden really improved enormously, and we'll have that information for you. But it isn't. Then it now has taken a reversal where they're firing the people, they're stopping the phone, even though they say they're letting up on that, and it's a shame, as you said, as Kevin said. So all of the congressional offices know that this is what their connection is to Social Security. In later years, it became Social Security and immigration became a big issue in the offices. So they had to hire people who could do that as well. We have both in our office. You know Corey. Where did Corey go? Corey's back there in our office. And Dee and Rebecca and where else are we?
Kate is the
Who else is here?
Kate.
Oh, Kate is here. So you see them. And you are their bosses. You are their bosses. But again, it comes back to what we have to do. As you said, we have to make it known. That's where we had the 10th. You participated in those 10,000 meetings we had. We're having days of action all over the country today. Hakeem even had 2 this morning, and one in Boston and one on the phone. And but members all over the country are, I must say, educating, but informing people of what is at stake. You don't want to be a fear monger. You don't want to scare people about it, but this is a matter of life and death in many cases, certainly in terms of how well you live. Most of you know this, but when a husband dies, and he's been on Social Security, the wife is on Social Security also, but his benefits are more. So it's maybe like $600 a month or something like that, which makes a difference. And well, depending on income and all the rest. So we go through the specifics of this all the time with people. But it is, elections have ramifications. Elections have ramifications, and we are in a situation that is anti-governance and anti-helping people. It is just the way it is. And so if that's scary to you, it's the reality that we have. Even with George Bush, he thought he was doing something to strengthen Social Security. We didn't agree. It was a policy decision. But this is not that. This is just saying they don't believe in governance. So they want to take it away. What it's doing to our seniors is, again, shameful because of what you have done over and above the work that you've done to earn these benefits. So again, join in what we are doing. It's going to be relentless, national, and very strong. Now, if I just may say chronologically, but not talking politics, we also are saying that elections have ramifications. When we won in 06, we prepared in 05. When we won in 18, we provided in 17. And what we prepared for was to be as strong as possible by the year in advance. So by the 6 months from now, in the fall of 2025, we'll know that we can win in 26 because we will have the candidates, we will have the public understand what is at stake in the election. And they're not, and so, again, we fully intend to win. So that is not 4 years. When people say, oh, it's 4 years. That ain't 4 years. It isn't been 2 years. It's 6 more months, and they will know. And the reason that's important is because the members, the Republican members, will have to know that they don't win if they advocate this. And then hopefully that changes the policy right away. Now, just as an example, when I was in Scranton again, when I was speaking, Lorraine, I said to them, every Republican member of the Pennsylvania congressional delegation, every Republican voted for that stinking, lousy, rotten bill that was taking $800 billion out of Medicaid, and including your representative in this area. He, instead of remaining silent on that rainy day, decided to fight back. And he said, oh, I'm for Medicare, I'm for Medicaid for people who deserve it. What, was he going to decide who deserves it? It's going to be up to him? Some people say 72, maybe up to 90 million people depending on Medicaid. It is children, and that's justification enough for children. It's middle income benefit, which is seniors who need long-term care, and it is people with disabilities, or as we say, other abilities. So it's not up to him to decide who he thinks deserves it, but that's the attitude that they bring to the floor of the House. Not the tens of millions of people who are receiving it now, but who they think deserves it. So again, it falls into the scam, Ponzi scheme. Somebody doesn't deserve this who is getting it. So that's the fight that we have. So we just have to fight, Henny, as you have done and as you know and as you have taught many of us. But this is a national. Now, when we win the election and win the House, we go one district at a time. But this agenda is a national one. Another question, anyone from our audience? Yes, sir.
I'm Michael Lernershot. I'm the CEO of My Street Compassionate Care. We're an AIDS hospice and respiratory care facility for low-income San Franciscans who have HIV and AIDS and other chronic illnesses like diabetes, cancer, cognitive decline, etc. 2/3 of our money comes from the federal government, Ryan White and HOPA. So we recognize that housing is an enormous problem for us under these circumstances. But one of the things that I think many of us who run nonprofit organizations are grappling with is how to tell our own constituents how we're going to move forward, how we're going to be able to pay the bills. If, even in the short run, while it all wanders through the halls of Congress. While we don't know how to get through to the Republican members of Congress, we also don't know how to communicate with our constituents, our funders, in order for them to understand, because the information that's coming from Washington is limited. So we're all having to ad-lib, we're all having to guess, we're all having to project and calm everybody down. And that's not only our funders, it's also the residents who come from the streets, fear that they can't pay their bills, and they very likely end up back in the streets. And that sometimes is a risk.
Well, thank you for what you do. And the bills that you mentioned, the Ryan White Care Act and HOPA sprang from San Francisco. There were bills that we put forth, and it was about community-based care, community-based prevention, or community-based research. And that's what San Francisco taught. We took a terrible bite of that one apple right early in HIV, but we had the experience, the knowledge, the intellectual resources to propose the bill that you're suggesting. And the Ryan White Care Act. HOPA definitely came directly from San Francisco. HOPA means housing opportunities for people with AIDS. And that was an initiative that was housing with community services. I'll tell you about HOPA. We promise not to tell anybody. So we have the HOPA bill. And Chuck Schumer joined me, and Jim McDermott from Washington State, and Chuck Schumer. So the three of us had the HOPA bill in the banking committee, and with the housing subcommittee. It was called Banking, Housing, and Urban Affairs. Now it's called Financial Institutions, but that's what it was then. And so the bill, the Republicans couldn't grasp it at all. I mean, it was like, and these were decent people. These were not what we have now. Patriots. These were nice people. We just had to disagree. They couldn't do it. They said, you know what? How are people with this, people with that, people with this? How can you decide that one diagnosis, one ailment is going to have special housing? Well, because homelessness contributes to stress, which attacks the immune system, the whole thing. And we have an example. St. Martin of Tours, this is now one of the 30 years ago before most of you were born, was one of the examples in San Francisco of housing with continuum of services. Everything that went with it. Now, I shouldn't even tell you this, but the leader on the Republican side, who was determined that this was not going to prevail. She was a lovely woman. She was my friend, all of that. The night before the bill's coming to the floor, her husband has a heart attack. She couldn't be there the next day. Divine intervention. I wouldn't tell you this story except that he did get well. So we passed the bill. Again, that's what they are going after, all of these things. Now, on top of that, they're saying to us, we don't want any money, you'll love this one, going to non-profits. Really? You don't want money going to non-profits? We don't mean, what are we talking about? What are we talking about? We don't want any money going to the arts, to museums, to healthcare, to education. Really. So, there's something very wrong with all of this. It is changing the character and the culture of America in addition to making people die for not having the care that they need. So again, elections have ramifications. Again, well, you come to my AIDS and Politics breakfast, as some of you do, and we can talk politics further. But in telling the people, because that's really part of your question, like we have to make sure the Republicans in there, we only need 3 votes. We only need 3 votes to win, but I'm talking about 3 votes to win on an issue. And the other day we had a bill on the floor that was disgraceful. And it was, we took the budget bill and that was horrible. And now we're implementing it in another bill. It's just the other day. We're 3 votes short. 2 Republicans voted with us. And then 2 Republicans didn't vote. If one of them voted, we would have had a tie. And that would have, you can't win with a tie. You have to have a majority. And one of the people who didn't vote with us, he didn't vote. The 2 Republicans voted with us. He is Valadeo in the Central Valley. Now understand this, we represent about 750, 800,000 people. Everybody has approximately the same number. Almost 500,000 of his constituents are on Medicaid. And he didn't vote to support that. Needless to say, we'll make sure they know that, and that's part of the phone banking that we're doing. We're doing the phone banking right now because those votes are happening right now. So we're getting. Chief Pelosi has a whole phone thing if you'd like to be helpful with that. That's not what I'm here about today. But it's a sad story to tell the constituents, except that we're making the fight. Because you know what? The AIDS advocacy that started, in the late 80s, but especially in the 90s, is an example to all of us about how to make a difference. Public sentiment is everything. Our inside maneuvering goes only as far as the mobilization will take us. And that's what we're trying to say to people. Know your power. Mobilize. As you taught us in the 90s, now we have to continue to do that.
Speaker, we have a question back here.
Okay, then we'll come up to Susan.
Good morning, ma'am. You're talking about keeping that drumbeat going as you try to make your case moving forward to 2026, when to the next election. How do you do that with so much going on and get people focused on the benefits when there's so much going on with the tariffs, the markets going up and down, and then you've got the relationships with other countries that are in question, and then ignoring a 9-0 Supreme Court vote to send a citizen back to the United States? How do you combat all that and stay focused on this drumbeat?
Well, thank you for your question, because it is, and any of you, please join in any time in answering any question. You can even catch up on some of the other questions about it. Here's the thing. You can have a mountain rocks of all the horrible things that they are doing, but you have to just pick 3 or 4. Boom. You can't, it's just too much. It's just too much. And what is most important is what we've been hearing out here, the kitchen table issue, people's own personal, when I say survival. Survival is a standard, I think. We talk about survival. Then we want them to have success. And then we want transformation in our society so that people never really have to worry about these things again. So if you have to, and this is shall we say, about leadership, says I. In the caucus, everybody has a priority, and you just have to say, these are the 3 or 4. Well, we want to know 6. that we had 6 for '06. There's a new direction for America, 6 for '06. 6 of the things we would do in the first 100 hours of our victory, and we won. That was 6 bills we would have had. But now, we can have whatever, I don't like to use any of their names, but whatever they're doing, whatever they're up to, is so brutal that we have clarity of what is important to people's kitchen table issues. But it's hard because regionally, generationally, gender-wise, all people say, well, this is the most important issue. But we have to use the scientific, as I talked about it, 6 and 18. The technology is so different today, even it was different in 18, that our leadership, and I have confidence in them, will be using the technology to communicate the few things that are the priority. Go for the jugular. Don't say I said that. That's not a bad message. I'm the street fighter, they're the diplomat. But anyway, it's a important question because you must prioritize. No matter how important every rock in that mountain is, you have to prioritize it, or it's just too much.
Can I just narrow down on the technology, so you're talking about you might see more on social media as far as messaging on Instagram, TikTok, and those sort of platforms?
Well, you have to use it. You have to communicate with people in a way that they receive their message, whatever that happens to be. Some of the Facebook, wherever they call themselves now, they've been using a business plan that is harmful to children and horrible. Facebook has been horrible. Meta, whatever they call themselves, they've been horrible. But using other technologies that can convey the message where people get it, where young people get it, where everybody get it. If you looked at the results of elections, people who read the paper or watched their news on TV voted one way. People who were on their platforms voted another. And so we have to be where they're coming from. Do you have any comments today? The technology or the prioritizing? I think we'll all agree that safety net is one priority for us. Housing is, I call housing health care, but it really is a big priority for us. And taking the Affordable Care Act is part of the safety net. But don't let me establish it first. Our leadership will do that. And they're working with the members to develop what they see in their districts. But again, coming back to the kitchen table. Okay, Susan?
You've opened the doors, so I can say this now. The California Democratic Party has an organizing committee, and they have become organized to make phone calls to voters in California District 22, David Valadeo's congressional district. We've done this before, and it works, and we fly under the radar. We call the voters, and we inform them that there's going to be a budget vote in the next week or so, or soon, and likely they're going to cut funding to Medicaid. And we tell them that's Medi-Cal in California. Ask them if they or anyone in their family has ever used Medi-Cal. We get frequent yes. And say, would you be willing to call your representative, give them your zip code to confirm that you live in the district, and tell them you do not want him to cut funding to Medicaid. And the system we're using, if we call either... Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, she's saying.
No problem.
I thought we opened the door to that, so... sorry about that.
Yeah, you can't talk politics, but Team Pelosi works with that too, and we have our employees in Castro. Okay. Okay, now some questions from the press in addition to the first gentleman who asked this question.
Yeah, thank you so much. I actually have two questions. Several new books claim quiet Helen Foxman. Several new books claim to detail President Biden's mental decline and how those around him tried to hide it and how you helped orchestrate his exit from the campaign. What are your thoughts, and do you feel somewhat vindicated? Also, your reaction to the break-in and fire at Governor Josh Shapiro's house that happened while he and his family were at home, and how you reached out to him. Thank you.
Well, let me just say, I'm willing to answer those questions. If we have any other questions about Social Security, safety net, Medicaid, any of that, any other people have any questions regarding that? No? What are you doing?
We have an audience member.
Okay, one more, and then I'll come back.
Thank you so much, Speaker Emerita. Jessica Rother of the Alzheimer's Association, and you've been such a fantastic champion for people with Alzheimer's and other disabilities in Congress. One of the issues that we've seen over the years with Social Security disability insurance is that it's already very difficult for people to get SSDI. People who have young onset Alzheimer's, which is a growing number, are repeatedly denied and told, oh, you could be a greeter at Walmart. We've had that happen to multiple people that we've worked with. What do you expect the firings of Social Security staff are going to do to disability applications? And do you think that it's actually the policy of this administration to make people work until they die?
Yes, I do. I think they do. And Jacqueline, did you want to say anything about that? About what the impact will be on firing people access people with disabilities to their benefits?
As I mentioned earlier, it's already very difficult for people to get an appointment, which is required now, to get an appointment to file a claim, and then to wait for their decision on their claim. Most of the time, we know that the claims the first go around are denied, so they got to file an appeal. And an appeal, you have to do that timely. And if it's late, you got to be able to show good cause. And then after that, if it's denied again, then you get to meet and actually speak with a judge. And that could be a total, you're probably 190 days, 240 days out from the date you first even attempted to apply. When you lessen the amount of people that are in charge of performing those tasks, it's only going to make that public service indicator, that's how long it takes us to do it, even more horrific than it already is. And so that's why we hope that no employees are left, because again, we're already at a deficit in the amount of staff that we have available to us now.
Yeah. When I was in college, I worked in the summer at Social Security. It's in Baltimore, Maryland, where I'm from. I worked there. And last year, I visited with Martin O'Malley and the staff there, and really everybody understands that benefits spring more freely and quicker the more staff that you have, except the Doge people. They think it's more efficient to have that waste, fraud, and abuse. They are the waste, fraud, and abuse. They just are. And so, in any case, it is it's something we have to fight. And it's a good, let's just get the fight over with. Let's put that's what we did with George Bush. I mean, bless his heart. We got rid of his privatization. They're trying again now because they're always trying. They want to privatize the VA. Yeah, they want to try to privatize it. They want to make money off of everything. And they don't want to spend money on what our values and our vision is about fairness in our society. So this is terrible. It is beyond what anybody would have expected a civilized person to do. But nonetheless, whether they are or not, that's what they're doing. So thank you for speaking out, but I hope you will continue to speak out on that. Mike, did you want to say something?
No, I think you did it much better. I can't say that. If they cut all these veterans' money, that's why it's in trouble. Because you think that these veterans are going to sit back and say, what the hell? No, they're going to come talk to you about what the hell. And,
Well, I hope so, because sometimes they just assume that the Republicans are good for veterans when all they're doing, what they want to do is cut their benefits, privatize their operation, and it's really, and again, you don't want to be a fearmonger, but that's what's there. Okay, so let me get back, I guess this will be the last question. You asked about Josh Shapiro's home and
The books.
okay, let's start with this. Josh Shapiro's home being, this is so shocking, but it's not so shocking to me because I've been there. When they've attacked your home, their children are asleep in the house, and they are shocked, and fortunately the security went in, awakened the family, and got them out, but the fire did serious damage to their home. And what we later learned is that the person who was making the assault had a hammer, and he was going to go after Governor Shapiro with the hammer, which is a very familiar experience to me. What we had in common was more than the hammer, but it was the rhetoric, whoever they are, someone watched too much Fox News, as a matter of fact. Not you necessarily, but that's what the mother of the attacker to my husband said. He watches too much Fox News. He has that thing. Now, that may not be what this person's addiction is, but whatever it is, the hammer going into the house, burning the house to begin with, that's just appalling. It has no place in our society. It's an act of terror. It's an act of terror. And people who are involved in politics should not have to be worried about their children, their family, their husbands being attacked. But that's what this atmosphere has contributed to. On your first question on the book, no, I've been a friend of Joe Biden forever. We talked about California Democratic Party 40 years ago, again before many of you were born. I was retiring as the chair of the California Democratic Party, and in the big dinner that they had in my own, the first table was Joe Biden all those years ago. We've been friends a very long time. And all I said was the decision is his to make, and they thought that opened the door. But, again, not to talk politics, but civics. To win an election, you have to plan a long way in advance, and I don't think there was enough time after that. So I don't feel vindicated. I would feel vindicated that Donald Trump had lost and didn't do all this other stuff. But I haven't really talked about my comments to Joe Biden. Perhaps I will at some point, but I love him, I respect him, I respect his family and all the rest. But it was at a point where we had to win the election, and I think that's self-evident when we see the results of the election. So in any event, we don't agonize, we organize, and we go out there and make sure. Now, if all of these issues can become bipartisan, then the election isn't so important, and it shouldn't have to be so important. That's why we have to get out there mobilizing the outside mobilization, HIV/AIDS, and so many other things. We would not have passed the Affordable Care Act, or we would not have saved the Affordable Care Act without the outside mobilization. So everybody should know the power of themselves and of their organizations that they're part of, and the collaboration that you can have. I can just say that from my own experience, self-help for the elderly has been a model in all of this, because they are truly hands-on in meeting the needs of the elderly. They command a great deal of respect. Yes?
One more question, ma'am.
Excuse me?
One more question, ma'am.
Oh, one more question. I thought you told me. Well, I can still talk about it. Yes, sir.
Hi, Dustin Gardner from Politico. Thank you for taking our questions. I had a question about President Trump's actions on tariffs. Governor Newsom has asked foreign countries to consider exempting California from some retaliatory tariffs. What do you think about that prospect, and have you had any conversations with foreign leaders about maybe shielding California from some of that economic damage?
I'm going to answer your question indirectly and then come directly to it. But there's three things that I have quoted Ronald Reagan on. Ronald Reagan made the last speech for immigration. It was the last speech he made as President of the United States. This is the last speech I will make as President, and I want to communicate a message to the country. I love when you talked about the importance of immigration. That was that. Now, on tariffs, he made, does anybody in the staff have it right there? But he made the most, I'm just looking at this. In the Oval Office, President Trump stood in silence as the president of El Salvador smeared Kilmer Abrego Garcia as a terrorist. He called him a terrorist and he said he wasn't sending him back. And Mr. Big Deal was standing there in silence. And Supreme Court said everybody had the right to their due process. He didn't get due process. He wasn't a terrorist. And that's what we have in the White House. Okay, here this is. Here it is. Wait a minute, it just came on my screen. Excuse me a second. I'm sorry. I gotta get this. You have to hear this because this was Ronald Reagan. Okay. In 1988, President Ronald Reagan said, "America's most recent experience with protectionism was a disaster for working men and women in the country. When Congress," he talked about when he was young, "when Congress passed the Smoot-Hawley tariff in 1930, we were told that it would protect America from foreign competition and save jobs in the country. The same line we're hearing today." This is when he was president. "The actual result was the Great Depression, the worst economic catastrophe in our history." He continued, "We should be aware of the demagogues. We should be aware of the demagogues who are ready to declare a trade war against our friends, weaken our economy, our national security, and the entire free world, all while cynically waving the American flag." Woo! Ronald Reagan. Now, we have to have fair trade. You know, we don't want to be victimized by unfair trade practices. But what the president is doing is something he thought up. I mean, when he put the pause on it, it was because people talked to him and said, "You got to do something about it." But he hadn't thought that up. Then they tried to say, "This was the plan all along." Yeah. So I don't. It'll be interesting to see if we can exempt California from it because trade policy is made national. But I think any conversation that says how wrong it is, how it affects communities, jobs, and as Reagan said, our national security as well as our economy, would be important. What's his name? The friend of the president of El Salvador. He's Trump, okay. He thinks if I say his name, it's like a curse word, I'm going to burn in hell. He's now saying he may exempt technology and some components of technology, which would have an impact on health, so maybe in terms of things. California is the biggest agriculture state in the country. You know, one county, Tulare County, has more dairy than the state of Wisconsin. I don't care how many cheese heads you must have. More dairy than Wisconsin. This state is it. I mean, fresh fruit and vegetables, specialty crops, and the rest. So some people have already called me from California saying that their orders have been canceled. Their orders have been canceled, for example, from China and the rest. China has been very bad in terms of its fairness on trade to us, but this is not the right way to go about it. So we want fair trade, we want fairness for our workers, access to our products, and non-piracy privacy of our software. You know, there's a smart way to go about this. It's not the way that Donald Trump is. We should just listen to Ronald Reagan. And now I was finishing a question to, what was that? Oh, I was talking about self-help for the elderly. Self-help for the elderly. So they tell me that we had to end at 11. We'll talk after.
With HUD, do you see things that when you come up with HUD?
With HUD?
HUD, yes, ma'am.
Well, we have to fight for that. We have always had to fight for that, especially in our high-cost area here. But so, as I said, housing and healthcare brought down concern, and that's a big fight we must make. But we haven't seen all the damage that they might want to do there. We just have to. Thank you all very much for coming. It's lovely to see you. But let's thank Annie Chung.